I found the packing list she hid for Friday. The note wasn't new. That was the worst part. It was sitting in our shared folder between grocery run and houseplants, two dependable, boring things, wearing a title that made my ribs feel like glass. Packing list, Friday. I'd only opened notes to add limes and baking soda. Instead, I watched a small, yellow document behave like it had done nothing wrong. The first lines looked like any other trip: charger, toothbrush, two dresses, flats for lobby. And then a line that moved the floor half an inch under me: black silk for after. Under that, spare key fob Theo to bring. Theo. It's always a handsome monosyllable that makes you hate vowels. The timestamp at the top said edited 3 days ago, but the change history told a different story. The shopping-style bullets had been added over a month, first the charger, then the shoes, then that black line like a dare. It wasn't a sudden thing. It was careful. Practice. Lena had texted an hour earlier with our shorthand: studio late, don't wait. She builds projection for people who want walls to mean it when they tell stories. I build sound for rooms that want to be believed. We have jobs that punish lies, and we still make some at home. I didn't call her. We have a small room for that, with the ugly lamp and the rule sheet and a rug that forgives. The kitchen smelled like onions deciding whether to be sweet. I stood with the phone in my hand and felt the quiet practice breathing. At 8:21 p.m., the lock turned and the hallway wrote its narrow yellow under our door. Lena stepped in wearing her hair pinned, and the look you get when a day has rehearsed you and you finally tell it to stop. She set her bag down, saw my face, and did her bravest trick: came close enough to fail. "You saw it," she said. "Packing list Friday," I said, pronouncing each word like it had paid taxes. "Black silk for after, Theo to bring the fob." She didn't flinch. "Kitchen or small room?" she asked. "Here," I said. "Let the refrigerator witness what belongs in a house." She leaned on the counter with both palms, the way she steadies a project when a sponsor gets ideas. "He invited me to the lake," she said. "It's an hour out. He said the air is better there." I didn't say yes out loud. I made a list instead. Lists have always been my safe sin. "Did you go?" It's a terrible question. It wants to be a noun. "I drove as far as the tolls," she said. I sat on the shoulder and watched other people pretend to be decisive. I turned the car around because the version of me that arrives in someone else's weekend is somebody I won't like on Monday. She looked at the phone, then at me, held my eyes the way people hold a line over a river and wait for it to become a bridge. "I kissed him once last week in a lobby that sells old money to new. It was a diagnostic more than a sin. He tasted like a biography I didn't write. I came home and made a list because making a list feels like keeping a door without opening it." "What did you want?" I asked. I didn't make it gentle, I made it survivable. "To find out whether the switch is dead," she said. "The one labeled ruin, and call it clarity. It isn't dead. It's hard to reach now. That's not a miracle, just a result. It can be negotiated with." "Do you want him?" I said, choosing the blade with the neatest edge. "No," she said. "I want an hour where my face is mine and the room behaves without me. He impersonates that hour. You are it." We stood and counted out 5 breaths like a truce. I took the takeout menu we've turned into a constitution off the fridge and uncapped the pen that lives in the sugar jar. "Truth before trips," I wrote. Lena nodded and added under it, in the handwriting that makes sponsors adjust their posture even over email: "If a list wants a Friday, it belongs to us before it belongs to a car." I wrote, "If you think you have to kiss someone to figure out you don't want them, say it before your mouth does field work." She underlined "say" twice, like a kindness wearing a warning. "Storm or quiet?" she asked, voice warm and cracking at once. "Quiet," I said, "then whether we can mop." We ate the pasta we weren't hungry for. After, she came around the counter and set her mouth at that place under my ear where grammar resigns, and the room remembered what it's supposed to be. She climbed onto the counter because physics is honest, and I let my hands learn again the map I keep pretending I need to memorize. We were careful because spectacle is for strangers. We were greedy because yes is a language you forget if you don't speak it often. We stopped before our bodies tried to press a law into our life. We leaned forehead to forehead and let the lamp dim like it forgave us for being this alive. In the morning, I opened the note again and deleted nothing. Instead, I changed the title to Packing List Us. Lena watched me do it without asking for credit. She forwarded me the email she'd sent at midnight. "No more after-hours site visits. If you want me to see a wall, schedule the crew and daylight. And I'm bringing my husband." Thea replied with a sentence that almost auditioned for decent. "Understood." He CC'd the project manager the way men outsource penance. Life tried to mind its manners, we let it. I tuned a podcast studio that thought velvet could replace intimacy. Lena coaxed a museum wall into remembering a coastline it had never seen. We replaced the basil and failed it again in 2 weeks. When the bad minutes arrived, the blue ones with no edges, she would press my hand at the top of her spine and say quiet, and the room would obey. When my chest rehearsed old disasters at 1:11 a.m., I'd say storm, and she would be weather with discipline. Then notes decided to be helpful. "Make a copy," it suggested, cheerful as a thief. The app had noticed I kept opening the list and offered to automate my dread. I laughed alone in the kitchen, took a screenshot, and sent it to Lena because we teach our devices what to do by showing them what not to. She sent back a voice note, our other code, just 3 seconds of breath and the sound her mouth makes when relief arrives and doesn't apologize for being late. I played it twice and thought about moving the ugly lamp switch higher. Of course, the city cannot resist a sequel. A week later, the list pinged with a new bullet added at 12:04 a.m. Swimsuit, maybe. I stared until the word looked like a cartoon. I texted her a photo of the screen and typed only our oldest question, "Here." She replied a minute later with a photo of the studio floor, cables coiled like patience, and her feet in socks that say mercy. Underneath, "Here." Then, the lake was a joke I made to myself so I could win at something. I'm fine with losing. That night in the small room, we wrote a bruise-colored rule. If panic asks for an itinerary, we give it a kitchen timer. 15 minutes of worst case. Then we set the thing and kiss so exactly the timer becomes jealous. We failed once anyway because people do. A dry cleaner called to confirm the black silk for Friday would be ready by 4. The clerk said silk with an intimacy that made me want to throw my phone. I said, "Please keep it behind the counter for me," without performing dignity. At dinner, I set the dress bag on the chair across and didn't make a speech. Lena touched the paper the way you touch a museum label you're not supposed to. I'm allowed to own talismans even if I never use them for the rituals they were built for, she said. I said, I'm allowed to watch you be beautiful without inventing an accusation. We made another rule in her handwriting which looks like permission and policy at once. If clothing needs a story, it gets our names sewn into the hem. The next afternoon, she did exactly that. The tailor charged $10. It felt like purchasing a plot we already lived in. We ran into Theo at a fundraiser disguised as a jazz set. He nodded in our direction with the humility men have access to when they've metabolized a few no's. "The lobby sings," he told Lena. "We tuned it," she said, and didn't look at me because she trusts I don't need a cue. He left politely. I didn't hate him for the 3 seconds it took him to behave right. A month later, the lake tried to acquire us again. Notes pasted a calendar link into the bottom of the list. Friday, 6 p.m., drive north. My watch buzzed because efficiency has teeth. Lena looked at the screen, then at me, and pressed email like a trigger. Plans changed, not coming. She didn't add a sorry. She owes the project professionalism. She doesn't owe the sponsor self. That night we made mint with sugar in a glass and called it aftercare. She climbed into my lap with the exactness of someone installing something gorgeous. I set my mouth upon her shoulder, that square of skin where our house keeps its piety. We went far enough to earn yes and stopped in time to make it worth wanting again. The lamp applauded. The list stayed open on the counter. We didn't look at it. I keep the list still. I don't delete it because artifacts keep me from sanctifying my own memory. Under black silk for after, Lena added in small, neat pencil a correction. After what? After choosing. After making this kitchen louder than lakes and lobbies. After we remember where we live. The rule sheet on the fridge is a mess now. Truth before trips. Lists belong to us. Kiss before experiment. 15 minutes for catastrophe and then bed. If a hotel texts my husband, the building owes him brunch. If his chest rehearses, I rehearse with it. Push the door before you judge the lock. It isn't romantic, not in the way that sells. It's sex and policy and the kind of honesty you have to refresh like a page that keeps timing out. But it works more days than it doesn't, and on the days it doesn't, we have a small room with an ugly lamp and the rule that ends all the others. Ask first. Choose together. Storm or quiet. Both if we earned it. Last night at 11:08, Notes offered a suggestion with the friendly bossiness it believes makes it family. Start a new list. I laughed with my mouth open because I was already making one. Charger, toothbrush, 2 plates, 1 bottle of the cheap good wine, black silk for later kitchen. We added our names at the top like children writing on a backpack. We went to bed having failed to be noble and succeeded at being alive. I woke this morning to nothing on my screen worth fearing, and a person beside me who still says the line that turns choices into rituals. Don't start without me. Then come here. We did, and if you need me to say out loud what we packed for today, only this. Our mouths. A pen. An ugly lamp that knows when to keep secrets and when to write their names in neat letters you can see from across the room, taped to a refrigerator that loves us for not leaving.